Reigning sixth man of the year, Lou Williams. Let's talk about him because he is in a 10-day league-mandated quarantine and will miss the Clippers' first two seeding games after an extracurricular activity, we'll call it, during an excused absence from the bubble. Sources told ESPN that Williams told NBA security he went to the Magic City strip club in Atlanta to grab dinner after a viewing for the father of a close friend who had passed. So, Tracy, how big a deal is this for Lou, for the Clippers, for the league? Says he was just getting dinner.
This is not even a story. Like, what are we talking about? The man had an excuse to leave the bubble to go to a family funeral, and he went and got something to eat. Because it's a strip club, we making this a story? I mean, if things were normal and Lou Williams went to the strip club, nobody even say anything about this. But because, you know, these guys are down there in the bubble, they making it a big deal. If he was to go to Wingstop or if he was to go to the grocery store, what is the difference? He still, when he gets back to the bubble, if he didn't test while being outside the bubble every day, he still has to go to the bubble and quarantine for 10 days. Exactly what he's doing now, because he didn't test while he was out. So when he goes back, he has to quarantine. If he didn't go to the strip club, and he went to the grocery store, people, or he went to the Wingstop, I don't know, any restaurant, and he didn't test every day that he was outside the bubble, he had to go back to the bubble and quarantine for 10 days. Being outside the bubble for an excuse and you know, you control what we do now and how we move? Come on, man, this ain't even a story. Why are we talking about this?
Yo, first of all, Tracy, I must say I'm so offended. I'm so offended by what you said because you just compared Wingstop and grocery store wings to Magic City. Sir, how dare you? Magic City has the best chicken wings I've ever had in my life. Not compare them to other spots.
I don't know.
But having said that, Mac, it's not about, you know, what he did on his personal time off. It's about the league having an approach that this bubble is safe and is secure, and that anyone who leaves the bubble is doing so for an approved activity, in this case, to go and pay his respects at a funeral. And so what they do in situations like this, when they have a rule, and even though you didn't really mean to break the spirit of the rule, you broke the rule, they make an example out of you. They give you the full 10 days as opposed to the 4 days he should have got.
What rule did he break?
And they do the full.
What rule did he break?
He left the bubble to go to a funeral, and then he ended up going to a strip club as well. That's the rule. The idea is that
he went and got something to
Tracy,
eat.
I'm gonna give you a great example. In 2007, we're beating the hell out of the Spurs. Robert Horry hip texts Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire and Boris Diaw, get off the bench, take a look, go back. They didn't go to fight. They didn't go to escalate. They just took a look and went back. But what did the league do to us? They made an example because they wanted to be known. Nobody leaves the bench for any reason. To this day, I think it's a dumb rule. I think they hurt us. I think we didn't win a championship because of that.
My brother.
But the reality is that is what they do. They do these things. They make examples out of people so that everybody else knows this is how they feel.
There's no need to make an example out of somebody that followed the rules. He had an excuse from the league to leave the bubble. Now you want to control where I go get something to eat? You can, come on, bro. What are we talking about? You can't control where I go get something to eat.
What's going to be hard about this, guys, is sort of where the judgment calls stand and who's making the judgment calls, right? Because to your point, Tracy, if he had gone to Wingstop, would it have been the same thing? If he had gone to the grocery store, would the NBA have said, hey, you said you were leaving for a funeral. We didn't approve this other activity where you were in a store with a bunch of people. I don't know sort of where that line is. I do know that Zach Lowe reported that Alex Caruso explored leaving the bubble for his sister's wedding, and that was going to be a 100-person wedding, and the NBA told him, and again, this is a wedding, so there's no moral judgment on where Lou Williams got wings. This was a different situation with a wedding, and they said, look, that is a high-risk activity to us to be at a wedding with 100 people. So if you leave and come back, you will have to quarantine for 10 days, even if you test negative every day out of the bubble. So they are making these judgment calls, and it is just interesting to think about, to your point, T-Mac, players are not used to the NBA having a say in what they do in their private time. But this is complicated, and I want to just point out a tweet from Lou Williams here because You, Tracy, have been very supportive of him. Some of our other ESPN analysts, not so much so. Lou Will tweeted, 15 years in this business, and the most dirt you have on my name is stopping to get hot wings during a pandemic.
Come on, man.
Now, he's addressing our friend Kendrick Perkins, and he says, Perk, shut up and stop laughing and saying it's just TV when you run into me too. So, Amin, what is your take on Lou Will tweeting that at Perk?
Well, I mean, I think, obviously Tracy can answer this a lot better. I feel for all my brothers in the media who are former players because they're asked questions, and sometimes, like Tracy in this case, you're going to support the player, and sometimes you're going to say, nah, man, you can't do that when you're in this type of situation like Perk has done. And at any given time, you guys are kind of being held to this double standard of the media wants you to be one way, but players want you to be another way. And so I feel for Perk, I feel for Tracy, where every time you tell your opinion, you got somebody who's going to have their feelings hurt one way or another.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have an excuse to leave this bubble. You can't tell me where I can go and grab something to eat. I mean, you just can't do that. Regardless where I go, the results are still the same when I get back to the bubble. You understand? Like, that's what I'm saying. The procedure is still the same when I get back to the bubble. Regardless if I went to the strip club or I went wherever, I still have to quarantine, whether it's 4 days, if I did it every day, testing while I was outside the bubble, or if I did, I still have to do the same. That's all I'm saying.
Yo, I'm going to just throw this in here because I don't want this guy to slide either. Jack Harlow, stop snitching, man. Why you got to post everything on the net? If I'm Lou Williams, I'm sending a Venmo request. Yo, Jack, you owe me 2 game checks, 86 racks apiece. That's 172 grand.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.